Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is your no-nonsense guide to the Astra Malorum Easter Egg. Just to start us off, I'm going to give you a couple of loadout recommendations for your game here. The boss fight can last a little while, so it's a good idea to set up a Gobblegum pack that has a cashback, in my opinion, or a raindrops if you're a gooner. I think Shields Up is also really nice to have in the boss fight, as always. And for weapons, I think having things like the Nova line or just a kitted out AK or AR, I think that's going to serve you fairly well. The LMGs are also a pretty good option. Like, I think you've got some good selection available to you here. Also, another weapon that's great for the boss fight because it's amazing for taking down the boss's armor is the Ion Sniper. I wouldn't use it as your primary damage weapon for the entire fight, but it's a really good weapon to have as sort of an accessory just to destroy that armor. But I would recommend the Deadshot Minor Augment that's going to allow you to do more damage to armor, and the Double Tap Augment, I think it's Double Caliber, that's also going to help you with the same thing. So let's get into the steps. To start with, you need to activate Power and Pack-a-Punch just like in all Easter eggs. If you're playing in Standard, it's guided on your screen how to do it, so follow that, but if you're in Cursed, it won't be. So I'm going to direct you to my Pack-a-Punch guide, which is a separate video if you do need a little assistance in this matter. Assuming you're playing Standard though, follow those on-screen steps, activate the Pack-a-Punch machine, and once you've done that, I quite like getting an early Pack-a-Punch done in my game because it's going to be nice to have a papped weapon for some of the other steps that we're going to do. Now, after Pack-a-Punch, there are 4 Wonder Weapon components that we are going to start working on getting. The first we'll take a look at here is the old Tessie Car Battery. You can get this by using that Pack-a-Punch gun you just got on Tessie and shooting the front of the car, and the battery will pop right out. You can grab it, and then a load of zombies will spawn in, so don't get taken out by them, and that's one of your parts secured. You'll then also need to put Cryo Freeze, the ammo mod, on your weapon at an arsenal machine, and once it's on, you can run around the map and shoot 3 purple crystals, and each of them will give you a little shard here. Pick those up, and you'll then have 3 in your inventory when you've grabbed all 3. Another thing you can do at this stage of your game is get your Aberrant wires. These will be located at a streetlight that is blinking in your game, but there are multiple spawn points for the blinking streetlight. So I'm going to show you several different spawn locations right now, but obviously if you can't find it, check the description down below and also just look out for a blinking streetlight in your game. So without further ado, let's show you some blinking streetlight spawns. Here is a potential blinking streetlight. This one is kind of offset. It's looking like it's been knocked over or something. Another possible blinking streetlight can be just here next to Wisp T. Then for another possible blinking streetlight, this one's just going to be here, as you can see in my gameplay. And here's another possible blinking streetlight as well. And here is another blinking streetlight. When you find your blinking streetlight, you are going to shoot it with your weapon just a couple of times, and you should see your Aberrant wires pop out, and you can pick those up. Now, to proceed further from here, we need to do a little extra sequence in the Pack-a-Punch room. The first thing we'll do to get this started is to hold square here on this organ, and it will play some tones. And then you're going to look around in that room for these vents. There are several of these. They can be on the corners of the walls in that room or on the pillars. And there are also some up top above where the Pack-a-Punch is as well, kind of on that balcony area. And you need to find one of those vents, which is steaming. When you find that, shoot it, and you then basically are on a timer to shoot the next steaming vent. So the steam will move from that one to a different one of the vents. And like I said, it could be lower down, or it could be above you in that middle upper area. When you find another steaming vent, shoot it, it will move again. Make sure you're checking that underneath bit, make sure you're checking that kind of ground level, and then make sure you're checking that upper cylindrical area. And once you've shot 6 or 7 of those, you'll get a sound cue, and you'll see the telescope in front of you sort of move around a little bit, and that will mean that we can interact with that in a moment. Now, during this, you should also have an Oscar spawn in. That's the mini-boss in this map. You want to not kill Oscar because we're going to use him for some Easter egg steps here. If he's not spawning for you, go another couple of rounds. I think that you can get him on like round 7, round 8, stuff like that. But in my experience, he spawns in from the steam vents. If you're having any trouble getting him to spawn in, then make sure you check the description. Also, for the record, if you fail the steam vents, you just need to go over to the organ again and play on the organ once more, and then look around for a different steaming vent and repeat the process, because it is on a timer. So assuming you've done the steam vents, you've moved the telescope, like everything is going well, and you have an Oscar spawned in, you're now going to work on the Oscar Wonder Weapon parts. One of these can be acquired from shooting the little UFOs that Oscar has floating around him. And when you do that, you'll get a damaged UFO disc, which you can pick up. And then you've got a choice. You can basically go and kill Oscar in one of 3 locations, and you can do them in any order you choose. So I'm just going to show you the order I happen to do in my game here. We're going to do the sun first. For this, you're going to go over to this little viewfinder on the telescope, hold interact on that, and then you're going to drag your viewfinder over to the sun when Oscar is nearby. If he's on the other side of the map, this is not going to work. So make sure you have Oscar sort of in that room, and zombies also will not target you while you're in the viewfinder, which is nice. So use the viewfinder to aim at the sun, and it will then kick you out of the viewfinder, and a laser beam will start coming through the telescope, and you need to walk Oscar through that, and he will then explode. Now, if he doesn't explode properly, something I'd also recommend doing, and this is a useful tip for all of these, is to shoot his little orbiting UFOs as he steps through it. And that's just going to mean that he gets a little staggered as well, so that can be quite nice for making sure this works. But so long as you walk him through that sun laser, you should see that he explodes, and you then need to wait for another Oscar to spawn into your game. So change the round, go to the next round after that. If you still don't have an Oscar, you should eventually hear a siren at the beginning of the round when he spawns in, and you'll also need to roam around the map to look for him because he won't automatically aggro to you. He'll sort of be stationary, like a sentry somewhere, and you need to find him. Otherwise, he might just sort of get lost roaming around the corridors. Now, before that happens, there are 1 or 2 other little things that you can do just to optimize the rest of your match. One of them is to go into the museum room, and by this cabinet, if you smash its glass sort of door, you can grab yourself a bone saw, which we will use shortly in the egg. And another thing that you can do while you're waiting is you can go over to the telescope viewfinder once again, and you this time want to position the viewfinder perfectly in the center of Mars. When you do this, you'll see there are 2 numbers in the bottom corner of your screen, and you're looking for the 4-digit number. It should be your declination. That's what that stands for. Dec is declination. And it should be 4 digits. We're going to note those down, and we're going to use them later in the Easter egg. So let's say you've got your next Oscar spawned in now. The second one that I'm going to do in my game is the lasers, but you can absolutely do the rocket ship next if you want to. Like I said, you can do these in any order. But what we can do is we can go into the luminarium, and because we've got the Tessie battery and the wires and the UFO, you can install these into the luminarium trap, and then you need to bring Oscar into the room and activate the trap, and it will be free to use for the first time. And when he's in there, a little lockdown sequence will start, and you'll see a loading bar in the corner of your screen saying that he is charging. So while this is all going on, I'd recommend taking out those UFOs that he spawns in, making sure that you survive, obviously. And you'll see that continuously charge up. And then at the end of it, you should see that Oscar dies. And you then need 1 more Oscar spawn a little later in your game. So go another couple of rounds until you get your next Oscar. And then your final Oscar, if you're doing the same order as me, is going to be the rocket. So you're going to go into the museum room. You're going to use those 3 shards that we picked up at the crystals earlier on, and you're going to bring Oscar to the back of the rocket just here. You're then going to interact with the side of the rocket, as you can see. That's going to start a blast-off sequence, and you want Oscar to be in the blast of the rocket when the little countdown hits 0. So it gives you 5 or 6 seconds. You just need to make sure that Oscar is at the back of the rocket as it ends, and that will then freeze Oscar, and it will cause him to die. And once you've done this with all 3 Oscars, so 1 Oscar at each trap, you'll see that when the Oscar dies, it pops out the wonder weapon for you to pick up. Now, if you did a different order, and you did the sunbeam last, for example, that's the Oscar kill that will pop out the wonder weapon for you. So grab that wonder weapon, and you can then proceed with the steps. The next thing we actually need is another Oscar. Yeah, we need a lot of Oscars here. So wait for another Oscar to spawn in, flipping a couple of rounds to do so. And then when this Oscar spawns, you need him to not be in combat mode chasing you, but instead you need him to have his yellow light out, almost like he's looking around with a flashlight. And that will mean that he hasn't spotted you yet. When this happens, you can keep following him, and you'll hear dialogue playing that Oscar is actually playing recordings of. And for this step, it's much easier if you've got subtitles on, so I recommend doing that. Eventually, you will hear Oscar play a recording of a guy called Thurston. And Thurston will say, "Get out of the way, everyone. I'll keep you safe," or something like that. But then he'll say, "Remember," and then he'll say the name of 3 planets in a row.
Venus, Jupiter, Neptune.
In my game, I got Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, but you could get any order of any of the planets. What we're going to do here is we're going to convert these planet names into a 3-digit code, where each planet corresponds to a number. So if you learned in school, my very earnest mother just served up nachos, that was what I learned, then this is going to be really easy for you. But you're just going to count through the planets from closest to the sun to furthest, and if your planets were Earth, Mercury, Venus, then your code would just be 3, 1, 2. Now, because I know a lot of you guys didn't learn that in school, I'm just going to put a cheat sheet on screen for you right now, so you don't have to stress about it. But just so you understand what's going on, that's what's happening. We're just converting the planet position from closest to furthest from the sun and turning that into a number. Once you've got your 3-digit code using our cheat sheet here, you're going to go over to this little device in the Pack-a-Punch room and enter your code. If successful, you'll see a platform lower, and you'll then be able to climb up to that and hold square on the body there to pick up a cryo key. Then go towards the Machina Australis room. That's the room with the big floating solar system. And on the south side of that, there's another little connecting room with a cryopod in it. Hold square on the cryopod, and the body inside will become exposed. This is what we need the bone saw for that we picked up earlier on. So hold square on the exposed head, and it will go through a little cutting sequence, which I'm not going to show on screen because we will get demonetized, and you will happily remove the brain of the subject in the pod. Now, while this is happening, Oscar is going to teleport to you and start attacking, so just be wary of that. But once you've got brain and made it out of there, you are going to want to bring it to the other brain in the map, which is in this canister. Hold square on it, and the brain that you just got will go in the canister, and you'll then be able to hold square again and start a little lockdown sequence. It will require you to defend the brain for 60 seconds, and zombies will spawn in. Now, you can make this a lot easier if you've got a teammate in your game who can hold the other zombies in the match elsewhere, and then you'll just have a consistent stream of purple-eyed zombies attacking the brain, and it'll be very easy to take them all down. Once the lockdown is complete, hold square again to pick up the brain, and then bring it to this room in the Machina Australis room. That's the solar system room, and you'll see it slots in nicely into the hole just here. Then hold square on it, and you will craft it into position, and that will complete the step. Once it's in there, you're going to see Thurston's reading list flash onto the screen of the machine that he's connected to, and for the record, it's Thurston's brain in the jar. And so what you need to do here is note down the name of the books that you're seeing on the left-hand side. You're going to have a variable number of books. You could have 3 books, or 4 books, or 5 books, or 6 books. Like, there's going to be a variation here depending on your match. But regardless of that, we're just going to note down the entire list. We're also going to go over to this machine, which will have opened up at this point. And remember earlier on, I told you to note down the declination of Mars in the Pack-a-Punch room. That 4-digit number is what we're going to now enter into this little metal box. So do that, and it will then say ready on the screen, I believe. The next thing we need to do is the busts step. We're going to be interacting with a lot of bust here, and this is why we need that reading order that we mentioned a moment ago. So go into this little library room, and in here you'll see 3 busts. You'll also see there are lots of bookshelves, and if you go over to an individual shelf of the bookshelf and hold square, you'll see that it gives you the name of a book, and you can actually see that book on that particular shelf as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my first book on my reading list, which for me in my match is Veil. That can be found just here on this shelf, as you can see, the Black Veil. And all of these books on this shelf, like you can see in the color code, are all related to this bust just here. Then these shelves are all related to this bust just here, and these 3 shelves are related to this bust just here. So I'm starting with the shelves where my first book on my reading list is located, and I know that that's Veil, like I said, and my second book is Void, and that book is not on this set of shelves. So that means that my input number for this bust is going to be 1, because only 1 book was on this set of shelves for me on my reading list. Then I'm going to go over to the Void bookshelf, and so Void is on this set of shelves, and I've also got Andromeda, and that's also on this set of shelves. You can see Void is just here, and Andromeda is just here. But my next book after that is Codex, and that's not found on this set of bookshelves, so it's just 1 and 2 books on this shelf. So I'm going to do 2 inputs on this bust when I start entering my sequence. Then finally, my last 2 books are Codex and Singularity, and we can find, if we interact with these, this one just here is Singularity, and this one just here is Codex. So that means that there's 2 books just here, and so that's going to mean there are 2 bust entries that I need to do on this bust. That means, in totality, my sequence is going to be 1 entry here, 2 entries on this bust, and 2 entries on this bust, and I'll show you me doing that in the game in real time now. Alright. 1, 2, 2.
I feel rush of pride.
Now you do have to be quick when you're doing this, so don't dilly-dally. Once you know what you need to enter, you're just going to do exactly what I did, running over to each bust and holding square the number of times that correspond to how many books you have on that set of shelves. But obviously for you, you're going to have different books, so you might do a different bust first, and you're going to have different numbers of books on each set of shelves. So while I had 1, 2, 2 as my input sequence, you might have a completely different number. And if you need any further help with this, by the way, and you're struggling, then you can always check the description of the video for more tips, including if you fail this, your busts will become immovable, and you'll have to go to the next round so you can bust again. Once you're finished busting, go up the ladder and you'll see the trapdoor has opened and you'll be able to grab a planet from inside. Then go back to the solar system room and install the planet on the empty prong that you can find just up here. You then need to find 3 notes around the map that are going to have a planet on them, and they also have a cardinal direction. So NE would be northeast, SW would be southwest, etc. The first note can be found just here, and you'll see it on this little table just here. Then another note can be found on the table in the archive room. You can see it just here. And then the third note is going to be on the table in the Luminarium laser trap room on another table just against the wall. You're going to note down which directions are corresponding to which planets for you in your game, and then you're going to go back to that solar system room and you're going to shoot those planets so that they are pointing in the directions that you can see on the chandelier above you, because the chandelier also doubles as a compass and you can see the directions marked on it. If you're shooting a planet and it's not moving at all, it might mean that you're shooting the wrong planet. So just make sure that you're shooting Saturn, Neptune, and Mars here, and you're shooting them into the directions that were written on those 3 pieces of paper I showed you. Once you feel like you've got all of them in the directions that you need them in, you're going to go over to the brain and hold square on it, and it's going to start a little lockdown sequence where Oscar is basically going to shoot UFOs at the middle structure, and you need to protect that middle structure by destroying the UFOs when he does this. And it'll play a sound every time he spawns a fresh set of UFOs, so make sure you're shooting them, defend that middle structure, and once you've completed the little charge up bar in the corner of your screen, you'll be done with the lockdown and a portal will open and you will be sucked in. On the other side, you'll be on Mars, which is pretty cool. And you'll then see a canister fall from the sky, which is Thurston, and you need to run over to him, hold square, pick him up, and then carry him over to this device. Hold square to pop him in place, and then hold square again to kind of craft him into place. And then you're gonna hear a strange sound playing, and Thurston's gonna say, that's odd. And when this happens, you need to immediately run to the back area of Mars and look out of the window, and you'll see something very, very small flying in the distance. You need to shoot the back right metal pillar here, and you'll see it lights up and it will attract the little flying thing. Then you need to shoot the back left pillar, and it will do the same thing. Then do the front right pillar, and then do the front left pillar, and you'll see the little flying thing zoom between the pillars as you do this. Then do a 180 and look at the top of the pillar that you can find above where the portal is for you, and shoot that, and it will bring the bird into the map, and you'll have sort of succeeded with that step. But the next thing we need to do is actually grab it. So you're going to wait for low gravity, and you're going to keep on shooting that back sort of pillar thing to keep attracting the bird and make sure that it doesn't fly all the way away. And then the bird will end up sort of swooping to one area of the room, and you can use the low gravity to jump up and grab it. And if you can't reach it, just make sure you're jumping off the sort of top platform where Thurston is. Once you've grabbed it, place it into this little statue in this slot just here. And then for this next step, we need the wonder weapon. Now, the way I like to do this is I like to actually kind of get a step ahead of myself here. So I'll go back to Earth and I'll go over to the Pack-a-Punch room and I'll hold square on the organ, and you'll see on this little screen here, a series of symbols will appear. These screen symbols each correspond to one of the pillars on Mars. And you can see at the base of the pillars, they've got the symbols on them, but they look slightly different to how they look on the screen. So I've made a little cheat sheet for you here of some of the symbols that you can get on your screen, and then some of the symbols you can get on the pillars, just so you can do a little bit of easier mixing and matching. But you might have more different symbols in your game. So just like the busts, I'll do a worked example here of how it was for me, and then you can apply the exact same logic to how it's going to be for you. So in my game, I had this symbol, which I call plus with a circle in the middle. Then I had this, which is diamond with a diamond in the middle. This, which is my blank symbol. This, which I call metronome. And then this, which I call everything. So that's my symbol sequence, but like I said, yours will be different. I'm then going to go back to Mars, and I'm going to use the wonder weapon to shoot the tops of all of the pillars. And just for safety, I'm going to do that in the order of my symbol sequence, and that's going to mean that I can kind of get used to going from my first symbol pillar to my second, to my third, to my fourth, to my fifth. And this will be relevant in just a moment. Then when you've shot the tops of those pillars with the wonder weapon, you'll see that all of the symbols on the bases of the pillars are now glowing a kind of dull blue. And you then need to go over to your pillar that represents your first symbol, which for me is this. It's the symbol I call plus with a circle in the middle. And I know this doesn't look like an obvious match, but this is the match to the symbol on the screen. And I'm going to hold square on it. And then immediately I'm going to run to the pillar that corresponds to my second symbol, and I'm going to hold square on that. And then immediately go to the pillar which corresponds to my third symbol, hold square on that. And for me, in my game, that was the blank symbol, remember, that I had before. But I can tell that this is my pillar that's corresponding to the blank symbol because it's process of elimination. Like, I've matched up the other four pillars. And so the blank symbol must be this extra pillar here that I don't recognize the symbol for. And I know it's third in my sequence, so I'm going to hold square on that pillar. And then I'm going to do pillar for symbol number 4 and pillar for symbol number 5. Now, if you do this wrong at any point, your symbol will come up red, and you basically get 3 fails before you fail for that round, so you can try a different pillar if you've mixed one up by accident. But if they go fully red, that means you do need to go to the next round before you can try to repeat this step. So for you, you might have a blank symbol that's in a different place. It might be earlier in your sequence or later in your sequence, but regardless, you just need to hold square on the pillars in the order that corresponds to your symbols on your screen, and the pillar with a symbol you don't recognize is the one that corresponds to the blank on your screen. Once done successfully with all 5 pillars, you're actually ready for boss fight. You can take your time here to get set up though, so I'd recommend Shatter Blast on your ammo mods. That's going to be good for destroying armor. I'd recommend making sure that you're spinning for gobbles. Obviously, if you're going for the Guna Gobblegums, then use things like your near-death experience and things like that. And it's also a really good idea to make sure you've got a decent amount of points, like maybe 15 or 20k points before you go into the fight, because it's going to be nice to have that as a backup to be able to buy armor off the wall as you do the boss fight. So to enter the boss, hold square on the brain, and it will give you a vote. You obviously need to vote to accept. And then when you enter the fight, to begin with, you need to charge the pillar on the right-hand side of the arena by filling it with zombie souls. So kill a bunch of zombie souls, they'll all flow into that. And then when it's fully charged, you can hold square on the brain. It will take a second, almost like you're repairing Tessie, and you will then fire a laser into the boss, and that will do a chunk of its health bar. Then do the same thing on the left-hand side, killing all the zombies in the arena. You can kill them wherever you want in the room. They're still going to have their souls flow into the charging tower. And then hold square on the brain once again, and that will fire the second shot into the boss. Then we're going to do that one more time, but we're going to be filling both towers, and this third bit is where it gets a little bit more hairy because you're going to start getting gas that will close off the lower area, and it will force you to go upstairs. And it's obviously a lot more cramped up there, and you'll also have these lasers from the boss targeting you. And if you've got multiple people in your game, those lasers will be trailing one behind each player. This means that if you run in opposite directions here, you're going to end up running into each other, and that's going to mean that you run into each other's lasers. So a pro tip that I've got for you is to try, if you can, to run in the same direction, all of you, either all clockwise or all anti-clockwise when the gas is present. And that will mean that you can sort of avoid everyone's lasers at the same time, and it'll be nice and straightforward. As you do this, feel free to chuck a monkey or two or chuck a Casimir or two if you need to, as you will get a max ammo a little later in the fight. But first, we're gonna just finish off this stage. And I know it looks like the boss is nearly dead, but it's a fake out, okay? The boss will then spawn in a new form in the middle of the arena. For this, there are a few things to worry about. First of all is that it's armored. So you're going to need to take that armor out before you can expose its weak spots. And it's only once the weak spots are present that it's going to take significantly more damage. One thing that you can do here just to help a little bit is throw semtexes. Those are pretty good at destroying armor. And you're also going to need to watch out for things like the boss's slam attack. And if it slams, you need to be ideally jumping when it hits the slam, and that will prevent some of the damage that you would be taking. And also you just want to be as far away from the boss really as you can be here. And you also need to look out for it throwing things, but so long as you break line of sight with the boss when it's throwing stuff, it will sort of destroy the boulder in the air and it won't hit you. So keep shooting the boss here and make sure you're shooting its weak spot, and it will then die. You'll go into a little immune phase, and then you'll be on phase 3 of the fight. And you just need to basically do the same thing again here, taking it down as best you can and watching out for all of those attacks, those slams and those rock throws and all those things. Then when you take it out there, you're going to go to phase 4, and this is where it does get a little bit more hairy. At the start of this phase, you're going to get a new power-up that you've not seen before, and that's going to give you, I believe, infinite equipment and also maybe infinite ammo. So while that timer is active for that power-up, spam your stuff. Like, spam your equipment like crazy and just really try and do as much boss damage as you can. But then you're going to need to start playing a little bit more conservatively, and this is nice because it will have refreshed your ammo, obviously, at this point, so you'll have your equipment back. The reason you need to be a bit more conservative from this point forwards is that when the boss throws these purple rocks now, when they land, they will create a pool of electricity in their place. So you need to not run into that electricity or you will die. As you're doing all of this, if you're getting low on armor, you should be going over to the armor wool buy and spending 10,000 points to get yourself a fresh set of armor. And if you're low on ammo, you can also buy ammo from the ammo crate as well. It's at this point just a war of attrition. You just need to make sure you don't run into the purple pools of electricity and then shoot the boss to death. And that's it. Easter egg completed. Now, if you're still having trouble in any capacity, on screen right now, I have a few videos that I really recommend you watch. The first is a video that will help you never fail this Easter egg again. It's going to be tips throughout the entire egg to make all of it easier for you and help you get to the boss at a really low round. Then also on screen, I'll have a boss fight strategy video. So whether you're solo or co-op, that video is going to make it a lot easier to get through the boss fight if you're having trouble. So click through to one of those now. And finally, if you want to reward yourself for doing the egg successfully, then I'll link my no nonsense merch on screen as well. We even have a Christmas sale going on. So thanks for watching. Click through now and I'll see you there.